If you have noticed an increase in unwanted calls and texts from businesses trying to sell you something, there is a reason for that. In May, a new law took effect in Florida that gives telemarketers more leeway to call and text Florida consumers. In an all-new Impact Check report, Florida 24 investigator Katie LaGrone examines why Florida's telephone solicitation law changed from putting consumers first to backing big business.
We have pre-approval. The reason of this call.
After years of annoying consumers.
If you want to make any change.
2 years ago, Florida lawmakers got involved in the robocall game, cracking down on these nuisance calls and texts by passing the Florida Telephone Solicitation Act. The unopposed bipartisan bill required all telemarketers get prior written consent before they could call or text consumers in the state.
It was helpful.
And even gave citizens the power to fight back through lawsuits if telemarketers didn't stop.
It allowed me the opportunity to have a voice.
Sherry All filed one of the first class action lawsuits under the state's new law. She sued David's Bridal after the wedding gown company continued to hound her with dozens of unwanted text messages, despite her repeated replies to stop.
And the next day I got another one.
This is Sherry describing the ordeal to us back in 2021.
We're now months later and it's continuing.
Within a year, Florida's new phone solicitation law proved to dial back the problem. Complaints to the feds about unsolicited calls in the Sunshine State dropped by nearly half.
Florida had the gold standard.
Consumer advocates described Florida's new law as the tightest anti-robocall law on the books. Having such a positive impact on consumers here, it became a model for other states.
It was the most protective of consumers in the country.
Just when Florida's new robocall law was doing everything it set out to do for consumers like you and me, this year, that all changed.
Say yay.
Yay. State lawmakers brought back the issue, only this time they seem to be less focused on protecting consumers and more focused on helping big business get back in the robocall game.
29 yeas, 10 nays, Madam President.
Show the bill passed.
In Tallahassee this spring, while debates over abortion rights, culture wars, and guns dominated the headlines, big business and special interest quietly lobbied lawmakers to change Florida's phone solicitation law because businesses claimed they were getting sued too much.
This is literally bankrupting small businesses.
I could stand up here and tell you about case after case after case of ridiculous lawsuits.
I said, show me one frivolous lawsuit. They didn't bring one complaint in.
That's State Representative Mike Beltran, a Republican from Tampa who sponsored the original 2021 telephone solicitation law.
We have gone against consumer protection and in favor of big business.
Why?
I don't know why.
But campaign finance records we combed through may provide a clue. In the months leading up to this year's session, records show some of the same companies that lobbied for changes to Florida's phone solicitation law.
Virtually every communication uses an automated machine.
Also donated thousands of dollars to the senator who introduced the more business-friendly version.
Chair Rommel.
Even more money went to Representative Bob Rommel, GOP chair of the Commerce Committee and a big tort reform supporter who wielded the power to move these changes forward. Campaign donations show Rommel's PAC received the single largest contribution by these supporters, $25,000 from the Committee of Automotive Retailers, a PAC led by longtime Tallahassee lobbyist Ted Smith.
What do you say to people who see these donations and say this was a pay-to-play?
I would say that they don't understand the legislative system in Florida or in most states. It's not about influencing votes. It's about assisting good people as they desire to get into office.
Smith also heads the Florida Automobile Dealers Association, one of the organizations that lobbied hardest for changes to the law.
All my dealers really want to do is their routine business practices.
Their efforts worked. By the end of session, the legislature passed a new business-friendly telephone solicitation law. Representative Beltran was the only Republican in the House to vote against it.
The legislation that was passed in this session was anti-consumer.
Money is the only thing that motivated the change of law.
Nobody's seeing a dime of anything.
Sherry All's class action lawsuit against David's Bridal ultimately went nowhere. 2 years after she filed suit, the company filed for bankruptcy earlier this year. But not before it, too, spent thousands of dollars to hire its own lobbyists to change Florida's law.
To get more information,
A law Sherry fears has now changed just enough to bring back the unwanted messages she fought so hard to stop.
If the businesses or whoever it is, the politicians, whoever, if they're the ones making the decisions, making with the money, pushing for certain things, the consumer's the one that loses out in the end.
I contacted Representative Rommel about that $25,000 donation, but his spokesperson told me he wasn't available. Consumers, you can still opt out of unsolicited messages, but now remember, businesses will have a 15-day grace period to stop contacting you. I'm Katie LaGrone reporting.